What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Total Takedown. It's your boy Clint from Pub Sports Radio, and these lines are brought to you by Super Book Sports. We're going to go back over this card, UFC Paris, and we're going to talk about totals, overs, unders. And if you want to check out the full breakdowns, head on over to Pub Sports Radio. Me and my co-host, my guy Dan Tom, broke down this entire card top to bottom. Today we're focusing specifically on those totals. Hit that like button, give the video a share. Leave me a comment down below, your favorite total. That helps the algorithm. Help a guy out. Let's go. Let's get into this thing. First fight of the night, we've got Ailin Perez making her UFC debut, taking on short notice replacement fighter Stephanie Egger. Total set at 2.5. Women's MMA, baby. Over 2.5. Plus 100. Even money. Under 2.5 is minus 120. Now this is odd because usually women's MMA fights, they expect these things to cruise to the judges' scorecards. We see minus 300s and such to the over 2.5, but because of the way Stephanie Egger fights, you've always got that ground and pound opportunity. You've always got that armbar both ways opportunity, so they kind of expect this one not to go the distance. Ailin Perez is really untested at this level. We've never even seen her face adversity in this fight, so I kind of lean with the Egger side. The problem is I'm not sure Egger's going to be able to get the finish. It might be more of a positional control type of finish or a decision win, something along those lines. And Ailin Perez is much more of a positional grappler. She's got decent ground and pound, but she just kind of body locks and chains people and gets them against the fence, drags them to the floor. If this fight is going to end, it's probably Stephanie Egger doing her usual hip toss and then snagging an arm or landing some elbows to get it done. I don't know that I want to pay minus 120 to find out whether or not they'll be finishing this one, though. I kind of feel like if you want to spin it on its head, regression, if you will, women's MMA at plus 100 to go over and make this thing a full 15-minute fight, especially if Ailin Perez is at all the caliber of fighter that some people think she is. This one probably goes all 15. So I'm going to lean with the over, but I'm not touching this one because I would not at all be shocked if one of these women grabs an arm and ends it early. Khalid Taha taking on UFC newcomer Christian Quiñones, another short notice fill-in spot. Total set at 2.5. The over is minus 155. The under of 2.5 rounds is plus 135. And this one's pretty simple for me. I only see one fighter finishing this fight. Khalid Taha is a guy that's got nukes in his hands. He is bricked up for days. He's got submission offense. His opponent, Christian Quiñones, he's got some finishes on the regional scene. I'm not going to cut him short there. But we have seen in the UFC against high-level competition, Khalid Taha is made of steel. You cannot finish this man. You simply do not get him out of that cage before the 15-minute timer is up. So I kind of think Christian Quiñones is pretty limited to a decision-based victory here. So if you think this thing is going under, you're probably backing Khalid Taha in this spot. I don't think the under 2.5 at plus 135 is worth it at that number. You could just take Khalid Taha inside the distance or Khalid Taha finish only props, things like that. I'm going to say this fight probably goes over, but again, very similar to the last fight. I think Taha kind of nukes this kid at some point. So the under is definitely live in kind of my opinion as far as what happens, but you guys know my rules. Both fighters have to be adding to the under for me to bet a total under 2.5. For me to bet violence, I need both guys to be able to finish. I need both guys to be able to get finished in some sort of manner. I think Christian Quiñones can get finished. I don't think he can finish here. Khalid Taha's durability is keeping me off this total, so that's the reason I've got kind of a weird stance on it. Gabriel Miranda taking on Benoit Saint-Denis. Total set at 1.5 for this one. Over 1.5 is minus 120. Under 1.5 is even money plus 100. Benoit Saint-Denis, a guy that I'm super high on. He's got a 100% finish rate. Always looks to get these fights to the ground, and then he pounds his opponents out or chokes them out, forces them to give up the back, things like that. Gabriel Miranda, solid grappler, kind of a discount version of Benoit Saint-Denis, a little small for the weight class. Likes to jump the ghillie, has that quick squeeze, wraps his arms around people's necks. So there's definitely finishing upside for this fight. The thing is, Gabriel Miranda is a guy that likes to play off his back. He's more than comfortable playing jiu-jitsu from bottom, and he's actually got a belt advantage on Benoit Saint-Denis. It's black belt versus brown belt. So even though I think Benoit Saint-Denis is the stronger fighter, the better wrestler, probably hits harder, and Gabriel Miranda is going to be short notice on a flight, going across the ocean, maybe jet lagged, a guy that slows down in general, I still don't know that this is a one-round fight. I think I'm going to say over 1.5 at minus 120. I think that's a pretty fair price for this thing to get to the second or the third round. And then once Gabriel Miranda slows down, Benoit Saint-Denis can probably get him out of there. It might go all 15 with Benoit just having to mind his P's and Q's and positionally stay on top of this guy for the majority of this fight. If it goes under 1.5, honestly, it's probably because Gabriel Miranda jumped for that guillotine and caught it. You know what I mean? That's maybe the only way I see this fight going under 1.5, because Benoit Saint-Denis is... He takes his time. He drags people down. And if Gabriel Miranda has any type of submission defense, which he's proven that he does, he's going to be a tough guy to put away early. Over 1.5, minus 120. Joaquin Buckley taking on Nasrat Imavov. We've got a total set at 1.5 again for this one. Over is minus 175, under is plus 155. And this is one of those spots where I do think the over is probably the move, but I don't really like the number on it. And we've got two guys that are very much capable of finishing. You know, Joaquin Buckley is a highlight reel finisher. Nasrat Imavov is turning into a sharpened steel edge. This guy is getting better and better every single time we see him. We've seen Buckley gas himself out and slow down and get finished. So I do have the finishing equity on both sides. The problem for me here is the 1.5 total, because when Buckley gets finished, it's usually later in the fight. It's because he gets tired. It's because he gets worn out. Now, he did get, head kicked the one time, but I'm going to take that with kind of a pinch of salt. That's not a result that we're going to see very often. Nasrat Imavov is a guy that we also have seen starting to finish people. But again, he kind of chips away at them and gets it done that way. It's not usually something that happens quickly, even though in his last fight, it did. So I'm thinking over 1.5, minus 175. But again, if somebody gets nuked in this fight, it's not going to shock me. So I don't really feel comfortable laying the minus 175, but I will say over. Michael Figlak taking on Faraz Ziam, UFC newcomer, debutant, taking on a guy that was just recently cut from the organization and literally brought back because we're in Paris and we needed a short notice fill-in. Total set at 2.5. The over is minus 280. The under is plus 240. And again, this is over all day for me here. Faraz Ziam is not a guy that's easy to finish. He's a point fighter. He likes to stick the jab in the face of his opponent, stay on the outside. The weakness for him is the grappling, right? If you get him down to the ground, he still hasn't quite put that game together. Michael Figlak, while I think he's capable of grappling, he does everything basically with body locks. He's not a blast double leg guy. He's not going to pick you up and slam you. It's going to be tough for him to get Faraz Ziam down, in my opinion. And if that's the case, I think we get mostly striking. Maybe the grappling happens a little bit later in the fight, but I'm not convinced that Figlak is just going to run through Ziam the way that someone like Terrence McKinney did. So I think this fight's going all 15. I'll say over 2.5. Basupian Magomedov taking on my guy Dustin Stolfus. Total set at 2.5 for this one. Over 2.5 is plus 100, even money. Under 2.5 is minus 120. And I actually kind of like the violence here in this spot. I do think Magomedov is simply going to run through my guy Dustin Stolfus, unfortunately. I think the striking, the range, the speed, that's all going to be way too much for someone like Dustin, who struggled with a guy like Dwight Grant on the feet in his last fight. Dustin, even though he's been very, very tough to put away with strikes, he has been submitted a couple times. Abus has that in his back pocket. He's got some submissions on his record as well. And Dustin Stolfus is a black belt. He's a guy that likes to take people down, drag them to the floor, and work them once there and look for submissions. So if Abus makes any type of a mistake grappling, then Dustin Stolfus is available for a submission finish as well. He's a guy that's also been knocked out. Now, Dustin doesn't have the kind of power it would take to pull that off, like Abus's last knockout loss, but it's something that happened. We've seen at least that weakness. It's possible it's on the table. So I do think that one of these guys is going to get finished in this fight. I think heavily that it's the Abus side. I've got a big bet on Magomedov here in this spot. I do think he knocks out Dustin Stolfus. However, we can't count out the fact that maybe he is a bust of a prospect. Maybe he's not the hype train that we all think he is. And someone like Dustin Stolfus can show him that UFC tour of the octagon, if you will, once he gets in there with him. I'll say under 2.5, minus 120. Nathaniel Wood taking on Charles Jourdain. This is the people's main event, the Twitter war of the week. Total set at 2.5. The over 2.5 minus 145. The under 2.5 plus 125. And I kind of like violence here again. This is another spot where the way these guys fight, I just can't see it going the full 15. Charles Jourdain has gone the full 15 with a couple of people, and I've been surprised it made it the full 15. many of those times. The problem is it just seems to always happen. These guys dig deep, they're tough enough, they're durable enough, their unwillingness to quit, and they end up going the whole 15 minutes. But Nathaniel Wood is going to have a significant speed advantage here on Charles Jourdain, and he's also a decent bit smaller than Charles Jourdain. I think those two things help us out. Nathaniel Wood has been cracked and finished late in fights before. Charles Jourdain has been cracked and finished. He's been submitted. The ground game is a bit of a problem. Nathaniel Wood could take him down and tap him out. Charles Jourdain could use that height, that size, that power, and clip Nathaniel Wood on the feet in an exchange. I think there's violence written all over this fight, and just because the last couple fights have gone the full 15 minutes, we're getting a nice plus number. Under 2.5 would be the way that I would look here. Jarno Errens taking on William Gomis, two UFC debutantes here. UFC has set this thing at, Superbook Sports has set this line at 2.5 once again. The over is plus 100 even money. The under 2.5 is minus 120. And I don't have a great read on this one, guys. I really don't. William Gomis seems like he's legit. I like his back takes. I like his ground and pound. He is nasty once he gets people on the mat. The problem is he's a little low volume on the feet. So Jarno Errens is the type of fighter that I think will be competitive as long as this thing stays standing. It's going to be kind of a pot-shotty staring contest, one and done type of thing. But if he gets taken down, he just doesn't have the chops on the mat, man. That's kind of my issue with Jarno Errens, is he really gives up back takes and bad positions relatively easily. I think that William Gomis can take advantage of that. I would say under 2.5, minus 120, but there's still so many questions on this one. I also wouldn't be surprised if we get kind of a low-volume kickboxing fight here in this spot. So not one that's going to get my money, not my most confident play. I'll say under 2.5, though, for the sake of the show. Nasrat Haqparast taking on John Makdessi. The bull is back, baby. Total again, 2.5. Over, minus 205. Under, plus 180. And I get it. Both these guys have been super durable over the course of their careers. We haven't seen either of them really get finished all that often. And even though they've both got finishes on their record, they haven't really been doing it lately. Nasrat was a guy that finished everybody on the regional scene. Can't get it done in the UFC. John Makdessi had a big step up in competition against Ignacio Bahamondes, damn near got him out of there in round 1 in the last fight, but then he slowed down and it turned into more of a technical kickboxing fight, and it ended up going all 15. That's kind of how I see this one playing out as well. There's some bad blood here. Neither of these guys wants to lose. There's a gym dispute, former training partners. These guys don't like each other. And because of that, neither of these guys is going to want to lose. So the fact that they're already pretty durable, the fact that we're already probably going to get a technical kickboxing match, and the fact that neither guy is willing to take that L by knockout to their opponent, I think we're probably going to see an over 2.5. Minus 205 doesn't seem half bad to me. Roman Kopylov taking on Alessio Di Chirico in the next fight here. Total again at 2.5. The over is minus 170. The under is plus 150. And again, I lean over. I just don't like it. You know, you've got Roman Kopylov, a guy that's got no ground game whatsoever. He's hurt a couple of his opponents in the UFC on the feet. He's been outclassed on the ground a couple of times. So I feel like this is a spot Alessio can come in and just do the same thing everybody else has done. Don't play too long on the feet. Get it to the ground. Maybe he's got a chance of getting this guy out of there, but he could also just sit on his chest for 15 minutes and get his way to a 15-minute decision win. Roman, on the other side of things, is probably going to have the pace advantage here. So if this thing stays standing, he's going to be winning minutes over Alessio. Now, Alessio has shown that he's been really durable over his UFC run. He's had a couple KO losses recently, but those were to some big hitters. And I know Roman Kopylov is a strong, solid kickboxer. He's hurt a couple people already in the UFC. But if Alessio's durability isn't in question, like if he wasn't coming off of a first-round knockout loss, I don't think we'd be worried about him in this spot. We'd be sure that he'd be able to take a 15-minute beating from Roman Kopylov in this spot. So while both guys have massive holes in their game, massive question marks, I still see this thing going 15 minutes. I still think we're going to get a sloppy back-and-forth type of brawl, maybe a split decision. I don't want to touch this one with my money. It shouldn't be this high on the card. Give me the over 2.5. Marvin Vettori taking on Robert Whittaker in your co-main event slot. 2.5 the total. Over is minus 290. Under is plus 245. And I agree again with that over. I think we're having decision city here in Paris, folks. Marvin Vettori is made of steel. It is impossible to put this man away. I have talked some crap. I have said some things about Robert the Reaper Whittaker and his durability, the way it's fading. You know, he just came off another title loss. Maybe he's unfocused. Maybe he's not ready to continue. Like, that's all narrative stuff, right? Like, the fact is, Robert Whittaker has not been put away by anybody. He's been dropped, he's been rocked, he's been hurt, but he fights his way back in. And Marvin Vettori is not a big hitter. So as much as the guy is a gas tank monster, as much as he's big for the division, his striking is getting better, he's never really put that power thing together. He's a volume guy. He stays in your face. He mixes in the chain grappling. So I don't think the finish is going to come from Marvin Vettori. And even though Robert Whittaker is more than capable of finishing just about everybody, he also does seem to be slowing down a little bit. Those finishes aren't coming the way that they used to against this new class at 185 pounds. I think Marvin Vettori can take his best shots. We'll say over 2.5, minus 290. It is steep, especially for bigger guys like this where somebody potentially could finish, but these guys have both shown themselves to be durable enough. I got to lean on the over. Tuivasa taking on Ciryl Gane. Total again here at 2.5. Oh boy, over 2.5 is minus 120. Under 2.5 is even money, plus 100. This thing all comes down to Tai. This thing all comes down to how Tai wants to play this fight. Because Ciryl Gane will pick and poke and run and make this thing go 25 minutes every single time he gets the opportunity to. He's not worried about being flashy. He's not worried about getting brownie points for finishes. That is not Ciryl Gane's game. So Tai Tuivasa is the one that's going to dictate this pace. If he wants to sit back and kickbox with Ciryl Gane, if he wants to play that slow game, if he wants to trade leg kicks, this thing probably does go over 2.5. But if Tai Tuivasa wants to make this a brawl, if he wants to make it ugly, if he chases down Ciryl Gane and forces him to engage, then I think one of these guys is going to get nuked and probably pretty quickly. So this fight either drags out late because Ciryl Gane is in the driver's seat as always, or Tai probably lands a bomb early and it forces these guys to trade. And once that happens, I mean, Gane's got some power too. So Tai is not the only one who can finish this thing early. I'm just saying Gane is not going to choose to take that path unless Tai makes that decision for him. And then either one of them could win quickly. I lean to the over 2.5. I do think this fight probably goes a decent bit later. Ciryl Gane probably tests the cardio of Tai, picks and pokes at the legs and the body the way he always does. But every single Tai fight, man, I've talked about overs in Tai Tuivasa fights way too many times, and then it's just been done in 2 minutes because that's what happens in Tai Tuivasa fights. You never really know what this wild man is going to do, and I love it. So I'm going to say over 2.5, but I don't think I'm going to bet that one. That's the total takedown, everybody. Good luck at UFC Paris. I hope you crush it and fill those pockets up with cash. Smash that like button. We'll see you tomorrow for the undefeated post-weigh-in show. Let's roll.